Welcome back to House of the Wolf Horror. I hope you all have had a great week. I'd like to welcome back all of our returning members and all the new members. And if you enjoy the show, please remember to hit that like and follow button. It helps get the podcast out to people that haven't heard it yet. And we have 3 amazing Skinwalker tales tonight, guaranteed to chill the flesh off your bones. Enjoy. I should have turned back when the air changed. Every caver knows that feeling. The subtle shift in pressure, the way your breath suddenly tastes like old pennies and wet stone. It's the cave's way of telling you that you've crossed a threshold, that you've left the world of sunlight and entered something older, something that doesn't care if you ever crawl back out. But I didn't turn back. I kept going. My name is Caleb Rourke, volunteer with the Great Basin National Park Cave Survey Team. I've mapped sections of Lehman Caves for years. The tourist routes, the off-trail passages, the tight squeezes that make your ribs creak. I've always loved the silence down here. The way your heartbeat becomes the only clock. The way the dark feels like a blanket instead of a threat. At least, it used to. This trip was supposed to be routine. A solo recon of a narrow, unmapped fissure that was discovered after a minor rockfall. The park geologist wanted to know if it connected to the Talus Room, or if it was just another dead-end crack. I volunteered because I like solitude. Because caves make sense in a way that people don't. I entered at 0700. By 0830, I was already deeper than I planned. The fissure was tighter than expected. A sideways belly crawl that forced my helmet to scrape the ceiling. My pack snagged twice. The limestone was damp, slick with condensation. I could hear water somewhere ahead, a slow rhythmic drip that echoed like a metronome. I remembered thinking, good acoustics, this'll be easy to map. I remember thinking, I'm alone down here. I remember thinking, perfect. The first wrong sign came when the passage widened unexpectedly. Caves don't usually do that. They taper, constrict, open gradually. But this one went from coffin tight to cathedral wide in the span of a single body length. My headlamp beam dissolved into the void so large it swallowed the light. I sat upright, breathing hard and whispering, Jesus. My voice didn't echo. It returned. Not as an echo, not delayed, not distorted. It came back in the exact same tone, the exact same breath pattern. Jesus. The darkness whispered back. I froze. My brain tried to rationalize it. Parallel walls, weird acoustics, some kind of perfect reflection chamber. But I spent half my life underground. I know what an echo sounds like. This wasn't one. This was mimicry. I should have turned back. Instead, I switched my backup headlamp, a brighter, tighter beam, and swept it across the chamber. The light revealed a cavern unlike anything in the known Lehman system. The walls were smooth, almost polished, as if water had carved them for centuries. Stalactites hung like teeth. The floor sloped downward into a dark throat of stone. On the far wall, about 20 feet up, were scratches. Not claw marks, not erosion, scratches. Deliberate, vertical, parallel. Human height, human spacing. I felt my stomach drop. Cavers don't scratch walls. We don't vandalize formations. We don't leave marks unless we're dying. I approached slowly, boots crumbling on gravel. The air grew colder. My breath fogged. The scratches were deeper than I expected, gouged into the limestone with something sharp, something strong. There were 5 of them. 5 long, straight, lines, a tally mark, a warning, a countdown. I reached out and touched the grooves. They were warm. Behind me, something shifted. Not a footstep, not a rockfall, a shift, like a body adjusting its weight, like something unfolding itself after a long, patient wait. I spun, headlamp slicing through the dark. Nothing. Just the cavern, just the silence, just my pulse hammering in my ears. I told myself I was imagining things, that the warmth was residual body heat from the previous explorer, that the memory was acoustics, that the shift was my own gear settling. But then I heard it, a voice, my voice. Caleb, soft, close, behind me. I whipped around again, lamp trembling in my hand. Caleb, it repeated. Same tone, same cadence, same breath pattern. Caleb. I backed away, boots slipping on the damp stone, my pack scraped the wall. My helmet beam jittered across the cavern, catching nothing but shadows. Who's there? I shouted. The darkness inhaled. Not metaphorically, not poetically. It inhaled a long, wet, rattling breath that sucked the warmth out of the air. My skin prickled, my lungs tightened. The sound came from everywhere and nowhere, as if the cavern itself were breathing. Then something moved at the edge of my light. A shape, low to the ground, too long and too thin. It crawled with a fluid, boneless motion, limbs bending at angles that made my joints ache just to look at. The skin was pale, stretched tight over protruding bones. Its head was wrong, too narrow, too elongated, like a skull pulled into a point. But the worst part was the face. It didn't have one. Not yet. The skin was smooth, blank, featureless, like wet clay waiting for a sculptor's hands. But as my light hit it, the surface rippled. Indentations formed, a mouth, a nose, eye sockets. My mouth, nose, and eyes. It was copying me. I stumbled backwards, heart slamming against my ribs. The creature tilted its head, studying me with my own forming features. Its jaw unhinged slightly, stretching wider than human anatomy allowed. Caleb, it whispered, but now the voice was perfect, indistinguishable from mine. I ran. I didn't think, didn't plan, didn't map my route. I just ran. Back towards the fissure, back towards the narrow crawl space, back toward the world of air, light, and sanity. Behind me, I heard it follow. Not running, not crawling, flowing. Its limbs scraped the stone. Its breath rasped like sandpaper, and every few seconds it called my name in my own voice, as if trying to lure me into stopping. Caleb, Caleb, Caleb. I reached the fissure and dove into it head first. Scraping my elbows raw, the passage was too tight for speed. I had to inch forward, ribs compressing, helmet grinding against the ceiling. My pack snagged again. I yanked it free, panting. Behind me, the creature reached the entrance. I heard it stop, heard it sniff the air, heard its bones crack as if shifting shape. Then I heard something worse. It began to shrink, bones popping, skin tightening, limbs folding inwards. It was making itself small enough to follow me. I screamed and pushed forward. clawing at the stone, desperate to reach the exit chamber. The fissure seemed longer than before, as if the cave were stretching, trying to keep me inside. Behind me, I heard it enter the crawl space. Its fingers, my fingers, scraped the rock inches from my boots. "Caleb," it whispered, "slow down." I didn't. I couldn't. I burst out of the fissure into the main tunnel, gasping, covered in dust and blood. I scrambled to my feet and ran blindly towards the entrance route. But the cave had changed. The walls were wrong. The turns were wrong. The air was wrong. Lehman caves don't shift. It doesn't rearrange itself. This one did. And somewhere behind me, the creature laughed. A perfect copy of my voice. I don't know how long I ran for. Time doesn't work right underground. Your sense of direction dissolves first, then your sense of distance, then your sense of self. All I knew that the tunnel ahead of me wasn't the one I'd crawled through earlier. The walls were too smooth, the ceiling too low, and the air was too cold. Lehman Caves is a mapped system, predictable, stable. This wasn't Lehman anymore. My headlamp flickered as I sprinted, throwing jittery shadows across the stone. Every time the beam dimmed, I felt the creature gaining on me. Not through sound, but through pressure, like the cave itself was tightening around my ribs. "Caleb," it called from somewhere behind me. My voice, my breath, my fear. I didn't answer, I didn't dare. The tunnel forked ahead. Left, a narrow squeeze. Right, a steep descent. I chose the right, sliding down the slope on my boots, grabbing at protrusions to slow myself. The limestone tore my skin from my palms. My pack slammed into my spine. I hit the bottom hard enough to knock the wind out of me. For a moment, I lay there gasping, staring at the ceiling. It was moving. Not shifting, breathing. The stone rose and fell in slow, rhythmic pulses, like the cave had lungs. My headlamp beam trembled across the undulating surface. I blinked hard, trying to clear my vision. The ceiling stopped moving. Had it ever moved, or was my brain already fracturing? I forced myself upright. My knees shook, my hands were bleeding, my helmet strap dug into my throat. I swallowed hard and checked my gear. Headlamp, backup lamp, chalk, rope, water, radio. The radio was dead. Not static, not interference, dead, like the battery had been drained in an instant. I clipped it back onto my harness and whispered, "Okay, okay, think." My voice echoed. Not mimicked, echoed. A normal, delayed, natural echo. That meant something. It meant this chamber was real. It meant the creature wasn't here yet. I took a slow, shallow breath and scanned the room. It was a dome-shaped cavern, maybe 30 feet across, with a floor of cracked mud and scattered stones. Water dripped from a stalactite in the center, forming a shallow pool. The air smelled metallic, like rust and old blood. On the far wall, I saw something that made my stomach twist. Boot prints. Human boot prints. Fresh. They led from the slope I'd slid down, across the chamber, into a low tunnel barely 3 feet high. Someone else had been here recently. I crouched to examine the prints. The mud was still wet, the edges were sharp. Whoever made them couldn't be more than an hour ahead of me. "Hello?" I called softly. My voice echoed normally again. "Hello," the cave repeated. No mimicry, no stolen voice. For the first time since I'd seen the creature, I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe I wasn't alone. Maybe someone else had found this passage. Maybe they knew a way out. I followed the prints into the low tunnel, crawling on my hands and knees. The ceiling brushed my back, the mud soaked onto my pants. My headlamp beam illuminated the narrow path ahead, a winding claustrophobic artery of stone. The prints continued for about 20 feet, then stopped abruptly. Not faded, not smudged, stopped, as if the person had vanished mid-step. I froze, breath catching in my throat. The mud ahead was undisturbed, perfectly smooth and untouched. I reached out and pressed my fingers into it. Cold, soft, real. The person hadn't turned around, hadn't crawled backwards, hadn't fallen. They simply ceased to exist. Behind me, something exhaled. I spun so fast I cracked my helmet against the ceiling. Pain shot down my neck, my headlamp beam jittered wildly across the tunnel behind me. Nothing. Just the passage. Just the mud. Just the silence. Then the silence broke. Caleb. My voice. But wrong this time. Stretched, distorted, like someone pulling a recording tape too tight. Caleb. It repeated, closer now. Found you. I scrambled backward, palms slipping into the mud. The tunnel was too tight to turn around. I had to retreat the way I came, pushing with my elbows, dragging my pack behind me. My breath came in ragged gasps. The creature entered the tunnel. I didn't see it. I felt it. The air pressure shifted. The temperature dropped. The stone vibrated with its movements. It was crawling. Fast. Caleb, it whispered, voice scraping like broken glass. Don't leave. I kicked backward, boots slamming into the mud, trying to gain traction. My helmet scraped the ceiling. My pack snagged again. I yanked it free, tearing the fabric. The creature's fingers brushed my boots. I screamed and shoved myself backward, bursting out of the low tunnel into the dome chamber. I scrambled to my feet, slipping on the wet mud, and sprinted towards the opposite wall. There, a narrow vertical crack, just wide enough to squeeze through. I dove into it sideways, chest compressing, ribs grinding against the stone. My headlamp flickered. The crack tightened around me like a fist. I forced myself deeper, ignoring the pain. Behind me, the creature reached the chamber. I heard it unfold itself, bones popping, skin stretching, limbs elongating. Its breath filled the room, a wet, rattling sound that made bile rise in my throat. Then it spoke, not in my voice, not in any human voice. It spoke in the voice of the person who left the boot prints, a woman's voice, soft, terrified. Help me, it whispered. Please, I'm stuck. I froze. The crack pressed against my chest, making it hard to breathe. Sweat dripped into my eyes. My heart pounded so hard I thought the creature could hear it. Please, the woman's voice cried. Don't leave me. I shut my eyes. It wasn't real. It wasn't her. It was the creature wearing her voice like a mask. But then I heard something that made my blood turn to ice. A second voice. Faint, weak, real. Is someone there? The woman. The real woman. She was alive, somewhere behind the creature. Help, she whispered. Please help. The creature laughed, a low guttural sound that echoed off the stone. Then it began to crawl towards the crack. Towards me. I forced myself deeper, ribs screaming, stone tearing at my clothes. The crack narrowed until I could barely move. My helmet scraped so hard it sparked. My breath came in shallow gasps. Behind me, the creature reached the entrance. Its fingers, too long, too thin, slid into the crack, probing and searching. "Caleb," it whispered in the woman's voice, "don't leave me alone." I pushed harder, ignoring the pain, ignoring the panic clawing at my throat. The crack widened suddenly. I tumbled into another chamber, smaller, darker, colder. I lay there shaking and listening. The creature's fingers withdrew. Its breath receded, its voice faded. For now. I wasn't safe, not even close, but I was alive. And somewhere behind that thing, a woman was still calling for help. I didn't know her. I didn't know how she got here. I didn't know if I could save her. But I knew one thing. I couldn't leave her here to die alone in the dark, even if that meant going back. I lay in the narrow chamber for a long time, listening to the creature's breath fade into the maze behind me. My own breathing was ragged, shallow, too loud. Every inhale felt like it might give me away. Every exhale felt like it might summon the thing back. But the woman's voice, the real one, wouldn't leave my head. "Is someone there?" Not mimicry, not distortion. Human, weak, terrified. I couldn't ignore that, even though every instinct screamed at me to keep crawling away until the cave spat me out back into the daylight. I couldn't leave her. I turned off my headlamp, not to save the battery, though I needed to, not to hide, though I needed that too. I turned it off because I needed to listen. The dark swallowed me whole, total, absolute, perfect black. The kind of darkness that erases the idea of sight. I held my breath. At first, nothing. Just the slow drip of water somewhere deeper in the chamber. The faint hum of blood in my ears. Then faint, distant, a sound, a sob, a real one. I turned the lamp back on, heart pounding. The chamber around me was small, barely 10 feet across with a low ceiling and walls that glistened with moisture. A single narrow passage led deeper into the rock. Not the way I'd come, but another route entirely. The sob came again from that passage. I swallowed hard. "Hey," I called softly. "I hear you. I'm coming." My voice echoed. Natural, delayed, normal. No mimicry. That was something. I crawled towards the passage, moving slowly, carefully. The floor sloped downward, slick with condensation. My palms stung from the earlier scrapes. My knees throbbed. My ribs ached from squeezing through the crack. But I kept going. The passage narrowed, then widened, then narrowed again. The air grew colder. My breath fogged in front of me. My headlamp beam illuminated a series of small chambers connected by tight squeezes, like a chain of underground lungs. In the third chamber, I found blood. A smear of it on the wall, a handprint, small and feminine, fresh. My stomach twisted. "Hello," I whispered. A voice answered. "Here." Weak, hoarse, but real. I crawled towards the sound, heart hammering. The passage opened into a low, wide room with a ceiling so close I had to hunch. My headlamp beam swept across the floor. Rocks, mud, broken formations. And then I saw her, woman in her 30s, wearing a torn windbreaker and mud-soaked hiking pants. Her hair was plastered to her face. Her skin was pale, almost gray. One of her legs was twisted at an unnatural angle, broken badly. She looked up as my light hit her. "Oh God," she whispered, "you're real." I crawled to her side, dropping my pack. "Yeah," I said, breath shaking. "I'm real. I'm Caleb. I'm with the survey team. What happened?" She swallowed hard, eyes darting towards the passage behind me. It it took me," she whispered. My blood ran cold. "The creature?" She nodded, trembling. "I was hiking near the cave entrance. I wasn't supposed to be off trail. I know, but I heard someone calling for help. A man. He sounded hurt. I followed the voice into a small opening. I thought I thought someone had fallen." Her eyes filled with tears. "It wasn't a man." I felt the chamber tighten around us. "What did it look like?" I asked. She shook her head violently. "No, no, I can't describe it. It wasn't right. It wasn't anything. It kept changing. It kept wearing people." Wearing? The word hit me like a punch. "It dragged me down here," she whispered. "It broke my leg. It kept talking to me, in my voice, in my mother's voice, in voices I didn't know. It kept trying them on like clothes." I felt bile rise in my throat. "How long have you been here?" "I don't know," she said. "Hours, days, there's no time down here." She was right. Time dissolves underground, especially when something is hunting you. I took a slow breath. "Okay, we're getting out. I know the way back to the main system. We just have to." A sound cut me off. A soft, wet tap, like a fingertip on stone. The woman's eyes widened. "No," she whispered. "No, no, no, no. It's here." I killed my headlamp instantly. Darkness swallowed us. The woman whimpered softly, biting it back. I reached out and squeezed her hand, trying to steady her breathing and my own. The tapping grew louder, closer. Then a voice drifted into the chamber. My voice. "Caleb," it whispered. "Found you." The woman squeezed my hand so hard her nails dug into my skin. The creature crawled into the chamber. I couldn't see it, but I could hear it. The scrape of bone against stone, the wet rasp of its breathing, the subtle shift of its weight as it unfolded itself. Then it spoke again, but not in my voice, in hers. "Help me," it whimpered. "Please, please help." The woman beside me shook violently, tears streaming down her face. "That's not me," she whispered. "That's not me." The creature moved closer. I could feel it, the pressure in the air, a coldness that seeped into my bones. My heart pounded so hard I thought it might burst. I leaned close to the woman's ear. "When I turn the light on," I whispered, "we move. Fast. I'll carry you." She nodded, trembling. The creature's breath brushed my cheek. It was inches away. I flicked on the headlamp. The creature recoiled, hissing, a sound like steam escaping from a cracked pipe. Its face was half-formed, shifting, rippling, trying to decide which version of me to wear. I grabbed the woman under the arms and hauled her up. She screamed as her broken leg twisted, but I didn't stop. I dragged her towards the passage, headlamp beam shaking wildly. The creature lunged. I swung my pack into its face. The impact made a sickening crack. The creature shrieked, a sound that rattled the stone. We crawled into the passage. The creature followed. Fast. Too fast. I dragged the woman through the narrow squeeze, her breath coming in ragged sobs. The creature slammed into the passage behind us, its limbs contorting to fit, bones snapping and reforming. "Caleb," it whispered, "don't leave." I didn't look back. I couldn't. We reached the second chamber. I pulled her through, slipped in the mud, nearly dropping her. The creature's fingers brushed my boot. We crawled into the third chamber, the creature's breath filling the tunnel. We reached the fourth. The creature laughed. The fifth. The creature whispered in my mother's voice. We reached the sixth. The creature whispered in the woman's voice. The seventh. The creature whispered in my voice. We reached the eighth. The creature whispered in a voice I didn't recognize. The ninth. The creature whispered in a voice that wasn't human. We reached the 10th, and the woman stopped moving. She stopped moving so suddenly I thought she'd fainted. Her body went slack in my arms, her breath shallow, her head lolling against my shoulder. "Hey, hey, stay with me," I whispered, shaking her gently. Nothing. Just a soft exhale, a tremor, a whimper. Behind us, the creature's breath filled the 10th chamber, a low, rattling hiss that vibrated the stone. It was close. Too close. I could feel the cold radiating from it like a draft from an open grave. I tried to lift her again. "Come on," I whispered. "We're almost." Her hand shot out and grabbed my wrist. Not weak, not trembling. Strong. Too strong. Her head lifted slowly, unnaturally, like a puppet pulled upright by invisible strings. Her eyes opened. They weren't her eyes. They were mine. "Caleb," she whispered in my voice. "Don't leave." I recoiled so hard I slammed into the wall. Pain exploded across my shoulder. The woman, or what was left of her, crawled towards me, her broken leg dragging behind her like a dead branch. Her jaw unhinged slightly, stretching wider than human anatomy should allow. Behind her, the creature entered the chamber. It had worn her. It had hollowed her out. It had filled her like a glove, and now it was wearing both of us. The woman's body jerked forward, limbs spasming, bones cracking as the creature inside her rearranged itself. Her spine arched, her fingers elongated, her skin rippled like something underneath was pushing outward. I scrambled backwards, boots slipping in the mud. "No," I whispered. "No, no, no." The woman's mouth opened wider, wider and wider, too wide. "Caleb," she whispered, but now in a voice that was layered. Hers, mine, something else, something ancient. I turned and crawled into the next passage, heart slamming against my ribs. The tunnel narrowed instantly, forcing me onto my stomach. My headlamp beam jittered across the stone. My breath became ragged gasps. Behind me, the woman's body entered the passage. Her bones snapped as she folded herself to fit. Her breath rattled. Her fingers scraped the stone inches from my boots. "Caleb," she whispered, "slow down." I clawed forward, ribs grinding against the rocks. The tunnel tightened around me like a vice. My helmet scraped the ceiling. My pack snagged. I yanked it free, tearing the strap. The creature, the real one, followed behind her. I could hear it, feel it, smell it. The air filled with a scent of rot and wet stone. I reached a fork. Left, a narrow squeeze. Right, a steep drop. I didn't think. I chose the drop, sliding down the slick chute of limestone. My body slammed into the bottom, knocking the wind out of me. I lay there gasping, staring at the chute. The woman's face appeared at the top, upside down, smiling with my mouth. "Found you," she whispered. I scrambled to my feet and ran. The tunnel twisted violently, turning back on itself, spiraling downwards. My headlamp flickered, my breath burned, my legs shook. The wall seemed to pulse with each heartbeat. Then, ahead, a faint glow. Not daylight, not salvation, but light. I sprinted towards it, slipping on the wet stone, nearly falling. The tunnel opened into a massive chamber, the largest I'd seen yet. The ceiling soared into darkness. The floor was uneven, littered with broken formations, and at the center of the room stood a pool. A perfectly still, perfectly round pool of water, glowing faintly from within. I approached slowly, chest heaving. The water was crystal clear. Too clear, I could see the bottom. Smooth, stone, no debris, and carved into the stone were markings. Not scratches, not tally marks, symbols. Old, angular, and wrong. They twisted when I looked at them, shifting like living things. Behind me, the creature entered the chamber. Not the woman's body that had been discarded somewhere in the tunnels. The real creature. It unfolded itself from the passage, limbs bending at impossible angles. The skin stretched like wet parchment. Its face was shifting as a mass of features, mine, hers, others I didn't recognize. It stepped towards me. I backed up until my boots touched the edge of the glowing pool. The creature tilted its head. "Caleb," it whispered, "come home." Home. The word echoed in my skull, vibrating through my bones. The symbols beneath the water pulsed softly, as if responding to the creature's voice. I looked down. The water wasn't glowing. Something beneath it was. Something alive. Something waiting. The creature stepped closer. I had two choices. Let it take me, or step into the pool. Neither was survival. Not really. But one was faster. I took a breath, the last breath that felt like mine, and stepped into the water. It was warm. Too warm, like blood. The glow intensified, blinding me. The symbols writhed beneath my feet. The water rose around my legs, my waist, my chest. The creature stood at the edge, watching, smiling with my face. "Caleb," it whispered, "thank you." The water pulled me under. I didn't fight. I couldn't. The glow swallowed me whole. The symbols wrapped around my limbs like chains. The water filled my lungs, but I didn't drown. I changed. I felt my bones soften, my skin stretch, my face dissolved. I felt the cave breathe in me. I felt myself become part of it. The last thing I saw before the darkness claimed me was the creature leaning over the pool, its face shifting into mine one final time. "Welcome," it whispered. And then I wasn't Caleb anymore. I was the echo. I was the voice in the stone. I was the thing that waits in the dark. And somewhere, far above, the cave mouth breathed in fresh air, waiting for the next person to hear someone calling for help in their own voice. I've worked these mountains for 14 years, long enough to know the difference between a cougar's scream and a person's, long enough to know the way the snow dampens sound, how wind funnels through the pines, and how the Rockies can feel alive in a way that's comforting one minute and predatory the next. but nothing in all those years prepared me for what I saw last winter. My name is Daniel Holt, Senior Ranger for the San Juan District of the Colorado Rockies. I filed this account as both a personal record and a warning. I don't expect anyone at the service to believe me. Hell, I barely believe it myself. But I know what I saw. I know what followed me, and I know what still walks out there. It began with a missing hiker. December 3rd, temperature was hovering around 12 degrees. Snow coming down in slow, lazy flakes that made the whole forest look like it was holding its breath. Dispatch called me at 6:14 a.m. Got a solo hiker overdue, the operator said. Name's Evan Price, 32, from Denver. His girlfriend says he was planning to photograph elk near Timberline Ridge. Timberline Ridge is a remote, steep, and prone to sudden whiteouts. Not a place you went alone in early winter unless you knew what you were doing. And even then, the mountains didn't care. I geared up, grabbed my radio, and headed out to the ranger truck. The roads were slick, the kind where the tires hum like they're whispering warnings. I reached the trailhead around 7:30. No other vehicles, no fresh tire tracks, but there were footprints, human ones. And something else. I crouched down, brushing the snow away with my glove. The human prints were normal enough. Hiking boots, size maybe 10 or 11. Beside them, overlapping them in places, were tracks I couldn't place. They were long, narrow, almost like a wolf's, but wrong. The toes were too long, the strides too wide, and the depth, whatever made them, was heavy. Much heavier than any wolf in these mountains. I felt a prickle at the back of my neck. The forest was silent. Even in winter you hear things. Branches cracking, birds shifting, and the distant groan of settling ice. But that morning, it was like the world was waiting. I radioed in. Dispatch, I've got tracks. Human and something else? Continuing up the ridge. Copy that, Ranger Holt. Backup is 2 hours out. 2 hours in these conditions, that might as well have been 2 days. I followed the tracks. The human ones grew erratic, weaving, doubling back, like Evan had been confused or scared. The other tracks stayed steady, purposeful, following, hunting. About a mile up, I caught a scent on the wind. At first, I thought it was a dead elk, that musky, metallic rot that clings to the back of your throat. But this was different, sharper, like wet copper mixed with something sour and old. I'd smelled it once before, years ago during a training exchange with a Navajo ranger in Arizona. We'd been tracking a poacher when the same stench drifted through the canyon. My partner, a man named Thomas Baggy, stopped dead in his tracks. He'd gone pale. We're leaving, he said. Why? It's not just anything. That smell means something is wearing a body that doesn't belong to it. I'd asked him what he meant, and he told me, reluctantly, about Yi Nadalushi, the Skinwalker, a witch who had given up their humanity for power, a thing that could wear the shapes of animals or people, a thing that hunted at night, mimicked voices, and fed on fear. I'd respected him too much to laugh, but I hadn't believed him either, until that morning on Timberline Ridge, because the smell was the same, exactly the same. I found the first sign of Evan at 9 a.m. A scrap of fabric, blue nylon, snagged on a branch about 7 feet up, too high for a man to reach unless he'd been lifted or dragged. The snow around the tree was disturbed, churned up like there'd been a struggle. The human footprints were everywhere, overlapping, frantic. The other tracks circled the tree, tight and predatory. I swallowed hard. "Evan?" I shouted. My voice echoed off the ridge and died. No answer. I kept moving. The tracks led higher towards the tree line where the pines grew dense, and the shadows stayed dark even in the daylight. The wind picked up, carrying that copper smell again, stronger now. And then I heard it. A voice, faint and ragged. "Help." I froze. It sounded like a man, like someone trying to shout through a mouthful of blood. "Help me?" "Evan," I called. The voice came again, closer this time. "Help." But something was wrong. The tone was off, the cadence, like someone imitating a voice they'd only heard once. My stomach dropped. Thomas's warning echoed in my head. It mimics. That's how it draws you in. I clicked my radio. "Dispatch, I've got possible vocal contact, but it sounds..." The voice cut me off. "Daniel?" My blood ran cold. I hadn't told anyone my first name over the radio. Not today. Not ever. I should have turned back, called for backup, waited. But I'm a ranger. People depend on us. And if Evan was alive, every second mattered. I followed the voice. It led me to a small clearing surrounded by pines. Snow blanketed the ground, untouched except for a single set of human footprints leading to the center. Evan stood there, or something that looked like him. He was facing away from me, shoulders hunched, clothes torn. His skin was pale, stretched too tight over his bones. His arms hung at odd angles, like he didn't know how to use them. "Evan?" I said softly. He turned and smiled. The mouth was wrong. It was too wide, too many teeth showing. Like a child drawing a smile without understanding how faces worked. "Daniel?" he said in that same broken, borrowed voice. I took a step back. His head twitched once, twice. Then his body jerked violently, like something inside him was trying to figure out how to move the parts. Then he ran at me. Not human running. Not even animal running. Something else. Something that moved like it had worn too many people's shapes and forgotten which one was real. I fired my sidearm. Once, twice, 3 times. The thing shrieked, a sound that wasn't human or animal, and bolted into the trees, moving on all fours, its limbs bending in ways that made my stomach twist. I stood there shaking, gun smoking in my hand, heart slamming against my ribs. Whatever that thing was, it wasn't Evan, but it had been wearing him. I radioed for emergency backup, my voice barely steady. "Dispatch, I've encountered a hostile entity. Not human. Repeat, not human. I need..." The radio hissed. Then a voice came through. "Not dispatch. Not human. Daniel." I dropped the radio. The forest around me creaked, shifted. Something enormous was moving out of the sight. I realized then that I wasn't hunting anything. I was being hunted. And the thing stalking me wasn't just wearing Evan. It wanted a new shape, a new voice, a new skin. Mine. I didn't run at first. Training tells you not to. Running from a predator triggers instinct. Theirs and yours. And panic gets people killed faster than claws or teeth. But training also doesn't account for something that can wear a man's skin like a jacket and speak with a voice it shouldn't know. I forced myself to breathe. Slow, controlled. The clearing around me felt wrong, like the air had thickened. The pines leaned inward, their branches heavy with snow, forming a kind of natural cathedral, a place where sound died and shadows pooled. I picked up my radio with numb fingers. Dispatch, if you can hear me, I need immediate. The radio crackled. Then a voice whispered through the static, Daniel, come back. Not Evan's voice, not mine. Something in between. I dropped the radio again. The forest exhaled, a long, low groan of shifting branches, and I knew I wasn't alone. I backed towards the tree line, scanning the shadows. Every instinct screamed at me to get out of there. But another part, that had spent years in these mountains, knew that turning my back would be a mistake. I remembered something Thomas had told me during the training exchange years ago. We'd been sitting by a campfire. The desert night stretched out around us. You don't look for a skinwalker, he said. If it wants you, it finds you. If it doesn't, you'll never know it was there. I'd ask him how you fought something like that. He stared into the fire for a long time before answering. You don't. You survive it. If it lets you. At the time, I chalked it up to folklore. Powerful, meaningful, but not literal. Now standing in that clearing with a smell of copper thick in the air, I realized how arrogant that I'd been. Some stories aren't meant to be dismissed. Some are warnings. I started moving downhill, slow and steady, keeping my eyes on the tree line. The snow muffled my steps, but every sound felt amplified. The crunch of the ice under my boots, the rasp of my breath, the distant creak of branches shifting under their winter load. Halfway down the ridge, I saw movement. A shape darted between trees, too fast and too low. It moved like a shadow trying to remember how to be solid. I gripped my sidearm tighter. Stay back, I muttered, though I knew it didn't care. The shape moved again, this time closer. I caught a glimpse. Pale skin stretched over long limbs, fingers too long, joints bending wrong. Then it vanished behind a boulder. I kept walking. The forest followed. About a quarter of a mile from the trailhead, I heard it again. Daniel. The voice floated through the trees, soft and coaxing. It sounded more human now, more like Evan, like it had practiced. Help me. I clenched my jaw. Not falling for it, I whispered. But the voice came again, closer. Please, it hurts. I stopped. The snow around me was pristine. No footprints, no tracks, nothing but untouched white stretching in every direction. But the voice was right behind me. I turned slowly. Nothing. Just trees, just snow, just silence. Then a whisper brushed my ear. Daniel. I spun, gun raised. Still nothing. But the smell was back, stronger than ever. Copper and rot and something else. Something like wet fur left too long in the sun. I backed away with my heart hammering. That's when I saw the footprints. Not mine, not human. They appeared in the snow one by one, as if something invisible were walking towards me. Each print, long and narrow, toe splayed unnaturally wide, coming closer and closer. I raised my gun. Show yourself! The footprints stopped. The forest held its breath. Then, from the trees ahead, something stepped into view. It was taller now, much taller. 7 feet at least, its limbs elongated, its spine arched like it was still adjusting to the shape it wore. Evan's face hung loosely on its skull, the skin stretched thin, the eyes too wide and too bright. The mouth twitched, trying to form a smile. "Daniel," it said in Evan's voice. But the voice was wrong. Too smooth, too confident, like it had finally figured out how to use the vocal cords. I aimed at its chest. "Stay where you are." It tilted its head, studying me with a curiosity that felt worse than hostility. "Cold," it said. "The skin. Cold." It touched its own cheek with a long, trembling finger, as if confused by the sensation. I swallowed hard. "What did you do to him?" The creature blinked slowly. "Wore him." Its voice was calm, matter-of-fact, like it was explaining how to put on a jacket. "Where is he now?" I asked. The creature's smile widened. "Inside." My stomach lurched. I fired. The bullet hit its shoulder, jerking it back. It let out a shriek, high, piercing, and inhuman, dropping down to all fours, scrambling into the trees with impossible speed. The forest exploded with motion. Branches snapped. Snow fell in sheets. Something huge moved through the pines, circling me. I ran. By the time I reached the trailhead, my lungs were burning and my legs felt like they were filled with lead. The ranger truck sat where I'd left it, half buried in fresh snow. I fumbled with the keys, hand shaking so badly I dropped them twice. Behind me, the forest groaned. Something was coming. I yanked the door open, threw myself inside, and slammed the locks down. The engine roared to life, tires spinning before catching traction. As I sped down the mountain road, I glanced in the rearview mirror. At first, I saw nothing. Then, just for a moment, I saw a shape standing at the edge of the trees. Tall, wrong, watching me with eyes that weren't human, and wearing a smile that wasn't Evan's. I didn't go home after I fled the ridge. I couldn't. Some part of me knew, bone deep, instinctive, that if I left the mountains, the thing would follow. It had my voice, my scent, my name. And names matter in the old stories. They're invitations if you're not careful. So instead of heading east towards town, I turned the truck back toward the ranger station. A squat lodge building, tucked against the granite outcrop, half buried in snow. The radio tower loomed above it like a skeletal finger pointing at the sky. I parked, killed the engine, and listened. Nothing. No wind, no birds, no creaking pines. Just the kind of silence that feels like a held breath. I stepped inside, and I locked the door behind me. The station had a landline. Old, crackling, but reliable. I dialed the only person I could think of. Thomas. He answered on the second ring. "Holt?" His voice was wary, like he already knew something was wrong. "I need your help," I said. It's what you told me about years ago, in Arizona." A long pause. "You're sure?" "I saw it wearing a man. I heard it speak. It knows my name." Another pause, then, "Where are you?" "San Juan Station. I'll be there in 2 hours. Don't go outside. Don't answer if it calls to you." The line went dead. I sank into the chair by the window, watching the tree line. The snow fell harder now, thick flakes swirling like ash. The mountains were disappearing behind the white curtain. 2 hours. I just have to survive 2 hours. The first sound came 20 minutes later. A faint scratching on the far wall of the station. Slow, deliberate, like claws dragging across wood. I froze. The scratching moved. From the wall to the window. Something brushed against the glass. A shadow passed by, tall and thin. Then, a voice. Daniel. It was perfect now. My voice. Let me in. I gripped the rifle mounted above the desk. My hands shook. The voice came again, softer. You're cold. Let me help. I didn't move, didn't breathe. The doorknob rattled, then twisted. Slowly, deliberately, I raised the rifle. Go away, I whispered. The thing on the other side of the door laughed, a low, broken sound that didn't belong to any human throat. Then the scratching started again, circling the building. Waiting, testing, learning. An hour passed, maybe more. The scratching stopped. The forest went still again. I almost convinced myself that it had left. Then someone knocked on the door. 3 soft taps. Daniel, a voice called. It's Ranger Collins. You okay in there? Collins, my partner. He wasn't supposed to be on shift today. I didn't move. Open up, man. Dispatch said you called in something weird. I stayed silent. Daniel, the voice said again, more insistent. Come on, it's freezing out here. I lifted the rifle and aimed at the door. Collins, I said, what's my dog's name? A pause. You don't have a dog. I didn't answer. The voice on the other side of the door sighed. Then it said in a perfect imitation of my own voice, Let me in. The door shook violently, hinges groaning. Something slammed against it again and again, each impact rattling the windows. I backed away, my heart pounding. The wood began to crack. Then a horn blared outside. A truck engine. The pounding stopped instantly, and the forest went silent. Then I heard it. The rapid, unnatural scramble of something fleeing into the trees. The door held, but barely. Thomas arrived moments later, snow caked on his coat, breath steaming in the cold air. He stepped inside, shut the door, and looked at the cracked wood. You're lucky, he said. It wanted you alive. I swallowed hard. What do we do? He set a small leather pouch on the table. Inside were herbs, ash, and something that looked like carved bone. We don't kill it, he said. We can't, but we can drive it back. Make it shed the skin it stole. He motioned for me to sit. What is it, really? I asked. He hesitated. A witch, he said finally. A person who broke every law of the Daini to gain power. They gave up their humanity, their face, their soul. They became something that lives between shapes, between worlds. Why me? It likes your voice, your strength, your place in these mountains. It wants to wear your skin next. My stomach twisted. Thomas began mixing the herbs, chanting softly in Daini. The air grew heavy. The smell of sage filled the room. This will protect you, he said, but only if you stay close. A howl echoed through the trees. Not a wolf, not anything natural. Thomas's eyes hardened. It knows we're preparing. We stepped outside together. The storm swirled around us. Thomas carried a small clay bowl filled with burning herbs. I carried the rifle, though I wasn't sure it would matter. The forest was a wall of white. The snow parted, and it stepped out. It wasn't wearing Evan anymore. It wasn't wearing anything. Its skin was pale and stretched, its limbs too long, its face a shifting blur of features, eyes forming and dissolving, mouths opening and closing as if it was trying on different identities. It saw me and smiled. Thomas began chanting louder, raising the bowl. The smoke curled towards the creature, and it recoiled, shrieking. Its voice shifted rapidly. Evan's, Colin's, mine, dozens of others, all layered, all wrong. Danielle, it hissed, come with me. The smoke thickened. The creature staggered. Its skin began to peel, literally peel, like wet bark coming off of a tree. Beneath it was darkness. Not flesh, not bone, just hunger. Thomas stepped forward, chanting with a force that made the air vibrate. The creature screamed. Its body convulsed, collapsing inwards, folding like a dying spider. The snow around it melted, hissing as if the thing radiated heat. Then with one final shriek, it dissolved into the storm, a smear of shadow torn apart by the wind, and it was gone. The snow settled, the forest exhaled. Thomas lowered the bowl, breathing hard. It's not dead, he said. It can't die. But it's been driven back. It won't wear that man anymore. I nodded slowly. What about me? Thomas looked at me for a long time. It will remember you, he said. But it won't come soon. Not after this. Not while the mountains still hold your name. I didn't ask what that meant. Some things you don't want clarified. We found what was left of Evan the next day, or rather, what the creature had discarded. A shape in the snow, empty, like a shed snakeskin. We buried him on the ridge, beneath the pines he'd come to photograph. The mountains were quiet that morning, respectful. As we finished, Thomas placed a hand on my shoulder. Remember, he said, it wears what it kills, but it fears those who stand their ground. I nodded. But as I looked into the tree line, I felt it, watching, waiting. Not gone, just patient. The mountains shifted in the wind, the pines whispering like old voices, and I knew the truth. Some things don't leave. Some things don't die. Some things wear the mountain, and some things are still wearing it now. I should have trusted the silence. Yellowstone is never truly quiet, not in the way people imagine wilderness to be. Even at night, the land breathes. Geysers hiss, mud pots bubble, lodgepole pines whisper in the wind. Elks bugle in the distance. The earth itself groans beneath your feet, restless and ancient. But that night, the night everything went wrong, the park held its breath, and I didn't notice until it was too late. My name is Caleb Rourke, Seasonal Ranger, Backcountry Division. I've worked Yellowstone for 5 summers, long enough to know the rhythms of the place, long enough to know when something is wrong, but not long enough to survive what was coming. Our group, me, my partner, Ranger Dana, and 3 civilian hikers had set out for a 3-day backcountry camping trip along the Shoshone Geyser Basin. A simple guided trek, easy terrain, good weather, Nothing unusual, except for the tracks we found on our first day, except for the smell, except for the way the woods seemed to lean in around us, listening. I ignored the signs. I shouldn't have. We reached the campsite just before dusk, a clearing tucked between a stand of lodgepole pines and a steaming runoff channel from the nearby geyser. The air smelled like sulfur and wet stone. The hikers, Mark, Jess, and Ty, were tired, but in good spirits. Dana nudged me as we unloaded the gear. "You're quiet," she said. "I'm just tired." She gave me a look. Bullshit. I didn't answer. I kept thinking about the tracks we'd found earlier. The ones shaped like a wolf's, but wrong. Too long, too narrow. The claws were too deep. And the stride, well, the stride was almost human. I told the group it was probably a malformed coyote print. Dana hadn't believed me. We set up camp. The hikers cooked dehydrated chili over a small stove, while Dana and I checked the perimeter. The sun dipped behind the ridge, and the temperature dropped fast. Yellowstone nights always do that. Heat bleeding out of the air like a dying thing. That's when the smell hit us. Rot, copper, and wet fur. Dana wrinkled her nose. Dead elk? Maybe. But it wasn't the smell of something dead. It was the smell of something hunting. We heard the first screams just after midnight. I bolted upright in my tent, heart hammering. For a moment I thought it was a person, high, sharp, and panicked. But as it echoed across the basin, it twisted into something else. Something animal, something wrong. Dana was already outside, flashlight in hand. "You heard it too?" she said. Hard not to. The hikers stumbled out of their tents, bleary and scared. "What the hell was that?" Ty asked. "Probably a fox." I lied. "They make weird noises at night." Dana shot me a look that said, "Stop lying." Then we heard it again, closer. A long, ragged howl that started low and ended in a wet, choking rasp. Jess grabbed Mark's arm. "That's not a fox." No, it wasn't. I scanned the tree line. The pines stood still and unmoving. No wind, no insects, no night birds. Just silence. Then, movement. A shape darted between the trees, too fast to track. A blur of pale fur and long limbs. My breath caught. Dana whispered, "Caleb, that wasn't a wolf." "I know." We gathered the hikers close. "Everybody stays together," I said. "No wandering, no noise. If you see something, don't run." "Why?" Jess asked. "Because predators chase." The shape moved again, closer this time. I caught a glimpse of it in the beam of my flashlight. My blood went cold. It was tall, taller than any wolf or coyote. Its limbs were long and almost human. Its head was wrong, stretched, elongated, like something wearing the skull of a deer, and its eyes were human. Dana whispered, "Skinwalker?" I didn't correct her, because she was right. We retreated to the center of the camp, backs together, flashlights sweeping the dark. The creature circled us, silent except for the occasional crack of a branch underfoot. Mark's voice shook. "What does it want?" "To watch," Dana said. She wasn't wrong. Skinwalkers don't rush. They stalk. They mimic. They learn you. They wear you down until you're too tired to fight. Then they take you. The creature stopped moving. The woods went still. And then, "Caleb." My name, spoken in a voice that sounded like my mother's. Jess gasped. "What the hell was that?" The voice came again, closer. "Caleb." Help me. Dana grabbed my arm. Don't listen. But the voice was perfect. Every inflection, every tremor. My mother had died 3 years ago, and hearing her voice again hit me like a punch to the chest. The creature stepped into the clearing. It stood upright now, towering over us. Its limbs were too long, its joints bent wrong. Its skin, or what passed for skin, hung loose in places, stretched tight in others. Its face was a mask of stolen flesh, stitched together by something that didn't understand how humans were supposed to look. And its mouth was smiling. Caleb, it crooned, just screamed. The creature lunged. Flashlight swung wildly. Someone fell. Someone else shouted. The creature barreled into the center of the camp, scattering gear and sending the stove flying. I grabbed Jess and shoved her behind me. Dana fired a warning shot in the air. A last resort, but we were out of options. The creature recoiled, shrieking. The sound was like metal tearing. Run, Dana yelled. We bolted into the trees. Branches whipped my face. The ground was uneven, broken by roots and rocks. Behind us, the creature crashed through the underbrush, gaining fast. Mark tripped. I hauled him up. Keep moving. We reached a narrow ravine, a runoff channel carved by years of snowmelt. The walls were steep, but climbable. Down, I shouted. We slid into the ravine just as the creature burst from the trees above us. It skidded to a stop at the edge, snarling, its silhouette framed by moonlight. Then it spoke again. Caleb, don't leave me. My mother's voice. I forced myself not to look back. We ran. The ravine carried us deeper into the basin, the air growing hotter as we neared more geothermal features. Steam drifted across the path, thick and blinding. The ground vibrated beneath our feet, a reminder that Yellowstone is alive, always shifting. Ty panted. Where are we going? Old service cabin, I said, half a mile ahead. Dana kept pace beside me, breathing hard. It's hurting us. I know. Skinwalkers didn't chase blindly. They guided. They pushed you where they want, and the ravine was a perfect funnel. The steam thickened. The smell of sulfur burned my throat. Then we heard it. Footsteps above us, matching our pace. The creature was running along the rim of the ravine, tracking us from above, waiting for the right moment to drop down. Jess sobbed, We're gonna die. No, I said, not tonight. But I didn't believe that. We reached the old service cabin just as the creature dropped in the ravine behind us. I shoved the hikers through the door and slammed it shut. Dana threw the deadbolt. The cabin was small, one room, rusted stove, table, and a single narrow window. Dust coated everything. The air smelled like mildew and old wood. Mark collapsed against the wall. What the hell is that thing? Dana answered, A ye Nadalushi. Jess blinked. A what? A skinwalker, I said. Navajo lore. A witch that can take the form of animals or people. Ty shook his head. That's not real. A heavy thud hit the door. Then another. Then a long, low scrape. Claws dragging across the wood. Ty swallowed. Okay, maybe it's real. The creature circled the cabin, sniffing, testing. The walls creaked under its weight. Then it spoke again. This time it used Jess's voice. Let me in, please. It hurts. Jess covered her ears, sobbing. Dana whispered, It's trying to break us. It's working, Mark muttered. The creature slammed into the door again, harder this time. The hinges groaned. We didn't have long. We barricaded the door with a table and stove. It wouldn't hold forever, but it bought us time. I checked the window. The creature paced outside, its silhouette distorted by steam. Every few seconds it stopped and tilted its head, listening. Dana joined me. It's waiting. For what? For us to make a mistake. She wasn't wrong. Skinwalkers are patient. They can mimic voices, scents, even memories. They wear you down until you open the door yourself. The creature stopped pacing. Then it spoke again. But this time, it used my voice. Dana, open the door. She stiffened. Don't listen, I said. But the creature kept going. Dana, please, I'm hurt. It got me. Her breathing quickened. Dana, I said firmly, look at me. She turned. Her eyes were wet. It sounds just like you. I know. That's why you can't trust it. The creature laughed. A perfect imitation of my laugh. Just whimpered, make it stop. But it didn't stop. It kept talking, kept laughing, kept mimicking each of us in turn. The cabin felt smaller with every passing minute. Hours passed. The creature never left. It circled, it whispered, it scratched at the walls. It mimicked voices of people we loved, people we feared, people we'd lost. At one point, it used Dana's father's voice, a man who died when she was 12. She broke down crying. Mark started muttering to himself, rocking back and forth. Jess stared at the door like she was waiting for it to open on its own. Ty paced in tight circles, whispering, this isn't real, this isn't real. We were unraveling, and the creature knew it. Around dawn, the scratching stopped. Silence. Then a knock. 3 slow, deliberate knocks. Caleb. My mother's voice again. Let me in, sweetheart. I closed my eyes. Dana touched my arm. You okay? No. The creature knocked again. Caleb, please, I'm cold. My hand shook. Dana whispered, it's not her. I know. But knowing didn't help. The door rattled. The hinges groaned. The creature was done waiting. The door exploded inward. The table and stove flew across the room. The creature barreled through the opening, its limbs contorted as it squeezed inside. Its face was a nightmare. Stretched skin, mismatched eyes, a mouth too wide and too full of teeth. Jess screamed. Ty swung a chair at it. The creature caught it in midair and crushed it like paper. Dana fired again. A direct hit in the creature's shoulder. It shrieked, stumbling back, but not falling. I grabbed a fire poker from beside the stove and drove it into the creature's ribs. It howled, swiping at me with claws that sliced through my jacket and into my skin. Pain flared hot and bright. Mark tackled the creature's legs. It kicked him across the room. Dana fired again. The creature lunged at her. I didn't think. I grabbed the stove, still warm from last night's fire, and slammed it into the creature's head. It reeled. Dana fired a final shot. The creature collapsed, and the cabin went silent. Steam drifted through the shattered doorway. Jess sobbed. Ty stared in shock. Mark groaned from the floor. Dana lowered her gun, shaking. Is it dead? She whispered. I stared at the creature's twisted body. No, because skinwalkers don't die like that. And as if to prove me right, the creature twitched. Out, I shouted. Everyone out! We bolted from the cabin, sprinting into the trees. Behind us, the creature rose slowly, bones cracking, limbs resetting. Jess cried, where do we go? The geyser field, I said. Now! It was risky, unstable ground, boiling water, thin crust, but it was the only place the creature couldn't follow easily. We ran toward the rising steam. The creature shrieked behind us. Branches snapped, footsteps thundered. It was gaining. We reached the edge of the geyser basin, a maze of steaming vents, bubbling pools, thin crust that could collapse underfoot. "Stay on the boardwalk," I yelled. We sprinted across the wooden planks, the heat rising in waves. The creature reached the basin's edge and hesitated, sniffing the air. Then it stepped forward. The crust cracked beneath its weight. It snarled, backing up. Dana gasped. "It can't cross." "No," I said, "but it can go around." And it did. The creature circled the basin, moving fast, cutting us off from the far side. "We're trapped. Unless—" "The vent," I said. Dana's eyes widened. "Caleb, no. It's the only way." The vent was unstable, a narrow fissure where superheated steam blasted upward every few minutes. If we timed it wrong, we'd be cooked alive. If we timed it right, we could use it. The creature charged toward on the boardwalk. "Get ready," I shouted. The vent rumbled. Steam built. The creature leapt onto the boardwalk. "Now!" We dove aside. The vent erupted. A column of scalding steam blasted upward with a roar. The creature ran straight into it. Its scream was inhuman. Its flesh blistered and peeled, its limbs twisted, its stolen skin sloughed off in wet chunks. It stumbled, shrieking, clawing at its melting face. Then it fell and didn't get up. We waited. Minutes passed. The steam dissipated. The creature lay still, its body twisted and charred, its stolen faces melted into an unrecognizable mass. Dana exhaled shakily. "Is it over?" I stared at the body, at the thing that had stalked us, at the thing that had worn my mother's voice. "Yes," I said, "it's over." But I wasn't sure. Not really. Because skinwalkers don't die easily, and Yellowstone is a big place. The rescue team found us 2 hours later. We were dehydrated, shaken, and half delirious. They asked what happened. We told them a bear attacked our camp. They believed us, mostly. They found the cabin destroyed. They found tracks they couldn't identify. They found claw marks too deep for any known predator. But they didn't find the creature's body. It was gone. The vent was quiet. The ground was clean, like nothing had ever died there. Sometimes, late at night, I hear my mother's voice again, calling my name. Soft, sweet, wrong. And sometimes, when the wind is still and the park holds its breath, I hear footsteps outside my cabin. Slow, deliberate, waiting, watching, the way it did before, the way it always will, because Yellowstone is old, and some things that live here are older. If you enjoyed tonight's story, please remember to hit that like button or leave a comment. And if you want to hear more from this channel and more stories that we've got written, please remember to hit that subscribe button. It'd mean a lot to us. Thank you, and have a great night.